Okay, so now I want to set my floor material, and you can see that I've got a floor there that does already have a material, but this is in shaded display. So it's important to check your realistic display when you want to see the render materials, and you can see there that my sandstone material is working on the wall. The interior has the sandstone that I have throughout the main wall, and then the white paint finish on the inside. But the flooring material doesn't seem to be working properly. If I just go back to shaded, you can see it had the lines for the floorboards, and it's yellow, which indicates timber. But in realistic, it's still just a simple colour. So I'm going to select the floor, and it's got a name that I've given it, concrete with floating timber. So, yeah, okay, so what I'll do, I'll change it back to...
Is that what you guys have got in situ concrete?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll change it to one of these that come with the program, or come in the template. So in situ concrete, 225mm. That's pretty similar to the one I've been using anyway, but it does have a concrete assigned. And that's fine, then I can use that as a starting point, and I'll put a timber floor onto that. So I'm going to go to edit type, and again, just like the walls, you'd use edit structure, but because that's right, exactly, because it's got this name in situ concrete, we probably want to name it to know that we have the timber, so I'll use duplicate, and we'll call it in situ concrete timber or floating timber. So in other words, a floating timber floor above the concrete. And then I'll edit the structure. And I suppose I'll leave all of these layers here. And it's as though we're just coming in and putting a new timber material over the top of what's already there. So I'll go to insert. And just like a wall, the order is always the same. They just don't label them in the floor, because it's, I suppose, a lot more obvious that the top is the top, the bottom is the bottom. So in other words, here, this layer I've added would go underneath the concrete, but if I use the up button, that'll move it up to the top. We still can't see anything because it's got a 0 thickness, so I'll give that 20mm, and now I can see my new layer. Yeah, well, I mean, we were just going on to the interior before, so yeah, it was at the bottom. Yeah, that's right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, so it is the opposite, yeah, in this case, definitely. So, and then the function, again, working with interiors, you'll be mainly focusing on the finishes. So, finish 1, again, for the function, and that's a common option that you'd be choosing. And then the material. So, once you've selected the field and hit browse, you're into the material editor. And you will definitely find some timber materials as a starting point. So I'll just choose one of these, and I'll duplicate it rather than just duplicating any material. So I'm going to right click on the material and duplicate, and I'm going to call it wood timber floor. And to firstly give it a surface pattern, I've started with a new material, so I've lost that the parallel lines I had in the pattern. So I'll click on this, and I haven't shown you this before anyway. You have surface patterns and cut patterns. So a surface pattern is what you'll see on the outside of your material, on the outside of the floor here. The cut pattern is what you see on the inside, when it's being cut in a 3D view, or in a section, or in your plan. So I'm happy just to have a diagonal crosshatch for the cut pattern. For timber, that's a pretty good pattern anyway. And then for the surface pattern, when you click there, so again, if it says none, you can click where it says none. What I'd do, if I was you, for surface patterns, is just make them model every time. Don't use drafting for model. Don't use drafting for surface patterns. Always use model. And if you have trouble remembering that, you'll see when you go to set a cut pattern, the only option you have is drafting. And so that can help to remind you that because with cut patterns you're using drafting always, with surface patterns you should use model always. I honestly don't know why they even give you the choice of using drafting for surface patterns. And so if you're wondering what a model pattern is, a model pattern is generally a drawing of the material. So in this case you'll see things like pictures of bricks. Whereas a drafting pattern, having done a fair bit of drafting, you probably have an idea. Brickwork is shown as a symbol. So this is the symbol that represents brickwork. It's not a drawing of some bricks. Oh, you would have done materials like the brick material, no? Oh, okay, right. I would say, oh, you're doing it in second semester, right? Okay, normally, yeah, you do that in first semester. But yep. Okay. So, well, anyhow, if you haven't seen them before, it is. Oh, right, you should have done a bit of this then. Yeah. So you would have done a bit of drafting, I would have thought. Well, if you don't know the patterns, this is a good way to learn them. And so when you see these symbols, say this one here for concrete, that's almost a drawing of concrete, but not really. And the others, definitely brickwork, and say the glass pattern, the earth pattern, that's not a drawing of some earth, it's a symbol that represents the earth material. And that's good for cut patterns because you just want a symbolic representation of the material, a symbol to tell everyone, or a pattern to tell everyone what the material is. But on the surface of the material, on the surface of the floor or the wall on the outside, we want a picture that looks like the material. So we want a drawing of some bricks, if it's brickwork, like you do here. So yeah, so for timber, parallel lines are usually all you need. That reads as floorboards or flooring for most people. So either 100mm vertical or 100mm horizontal. We'll do here, depending on which way you want the floorboards to go. And so I'll start with vertical and see how that looks. It might need to be horizontal, but we'll see. So I'll click OK. And I've got that black parallel line, just like a hatch. And so then the final thing for graphics is to set the colour. And when you see this option here, use render appearance, you can't change the colour. So to adjust the colour, you'll have to turn that option off if it's on, and you can then click on the colour swatch and adjust it as you would any other colour. And these basic colours are a pretty good starting point. You can easily fine-tune the brightness over here. So I'll just show you how it is looking up to that point. If I click OK, and then OK again, notice here there's the cut pattern. So that was the crosshatch. But when I click OK one more time, now in shaded, I'll see that yellow colour with the parallel 100mm lines. So I'll select that floor again, back to edit type, edit, click on the material, browse. Now I'll go to the appearance tab, and you probably saw in realistic before that it did have timber as the material, but not the one you want probably for flooring. So to change this, now again, I'll right click on appearance and go to replace. And then in the appearance library, if you go down to flooring, flooring wood has a lot of good starting floorboard materials. And so I'll just choose one. Beechwood Whiskey will do me for a starting point. And so I'll double click on that. And you'll see now that's gone into the material editor. That's it. OK, OK, OK. And now, if I check that in realistic, I can see my timber floorboards. So that's going to work for this floor as well. I can use the same material. So this might make it a bit clearer why you're doing all the duplicating. I've got a new floor I've made up here, which is a different kind of floor. It has to be because it's a different thickness. But there's a good chance I want the same finish on both of those floors. And so if I select the floor now, go to edit type, edit the structure, I've only got the one element here, the one layer, so I'll change the material to that, to, probably guessed it, wood timber floor, the one I just made. So I don't need to do all of that setup again. You're setting the material as a separate element that can then be assigned to lots of different floor types, in this case. So there we are, there's the same hatch pattern I had earlier, and when I get out of here, now I can see it's got exactly the same floorboards as I used on the lower floor. And taking that one step further, back into, well, I want to go and edit that material without going and editing the floor each time. You're probably going to find that a bit tedious before too long. You can go to the Manage tab and you'll find the Materials button, which will take you straight to the material. Just saves you a few steps. Right, so there it is, wood timber floor. I'm going to go to Appearance, click on the swatch here, and check the size. Oh, and of course it's doing its thing. This is important actually to see. When you see something like size X and size Y, that is actually an error in the program. Right, so you should see a size, and you should expect to see a size in millimetres, the way it shows you up here, 914 millimetres. So I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to hit Done, and then OK. Back to Materials, and I'll click on the swatch again on Appearance. I'll click on that image swatch, and notice how now it does tell me in millimetres the size. Just one of those errors where if you close it and then open it again, it seems to fix it. Okay, so I want bigger floorboards. So instead of having it 914 mil, that's the size of this whole image, I'll make it 1500 mil. Okay, that's it, done. So I'm just changing the size of that image. Yeah, yep, it is, yep, the width of each board. So it's really the size of this image in the scene. And so before, that image was 900 mil roughly, and there are about 9 or 10 floorboards in the image, so each board would be about 100 mil. Now, if it's 1500 mil and there are about 10 boards there, yep, that'll be 150 mil roughly. So if I click OK, then I'll see them get bigger, and it'll do it on both. So even though they're different floor types, because they use the same material, they can both change at the same time. And that's really the reason that the program's set up in the way it is. It definitely could have been done, I think, in a slightly better way, but like I said before, it does make sense in the end. So you can see floors work in a pretty similar way to walls, in that you select them, go to Edit Type, do a lot of duplicating, and eventually you'll get the materials and the management set up the way you need it to. But then you'll see, I'll do another video on this, families, the things you've modelled, if you have been using model in place, they work differently again. So I'll show you those separately. Just finish that one.